These 11 people will be spending 24 hours together in this studio during the next 3 days. 9 are from Belfast. 2 are from the United States. Their discussion will focus on the troubles in Northern Ireland, the rocket and rubber bullet version of a centuries-old struggle between Unionist and Nationalist, Protestant and Roman Catholic, colonist and native. Whether the conflict is political, economic, racial, or religious, the villain is history. The victims are these people and others like them. The title of this presentation is The Steel Shutter. Sean, working class, is deeply involved in Reconstruction work. He is Roman Catholic.
And just press the tape.
Linda is Protestant,
Okay.
working class, age 20. Tom, Roman Catholic, is active in politics. He is middle class, from a working class background. George, 20, works in the shipyard. He is Protestant, working class. Peggy, a mother of 3, working class, Roman Catholic. Brian, Protestant, working class. He is a fireman. Barney, born in England, is a retired lieutenant colonel of the British Army. He is an executive of a public utilities company, upper middle class, Protestant. Georgina, a widow with 3 children at home, Protestant, working class. Sean is Roman Catholic, a school teacher. His background is working class. 2 psychologists from the Center for Studies of the Person are with this group. This is Carl Rogers.
What I read in the papers. So you may wonder, why am I here? I'm here because I've had quite a lot of experience and a certain amount of occasional success in helping people to communicate. And that's my interest here, to see if we can perhaps communicate more with each other.
I noticed at one time you were all
In Belfast, psychologist Pat Rice became acquainted with each of the group members.
You know, that I was a part of this group coming from Belfast. And I think I feel that way now. I'm very proud to be here with you, even though I, too, don't know exactly everything we'll share or talk about or how it will go. But I feel kind of at home.
That's good.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm here is that I've seen so much horror over the last 4 years in my occupation. And I realize there's a stage that you get to where everybody says that enough's enough. I mean, there's no lower depths that you can sink to, and there must be a rise up out of those.
A few points I would like to mention here, and it's
Sean, I can't quite hear.
There's a few points that I would like to make here, because I think that the majority of people in Northern Ireland, as Brian said, we've all reached a stage now where we're actually sick, sore and tired of this violence. And let's just make this point perfectly clear, because it seems to be a sort of an opinion that has been formed everywhere, that Catholic and Protestant working class people can't meet together, can't talk together, can't discuss together. They can. It is being done, and working class people are going to turn around and say, once and for all, we have had enough. We're going to meet together, discuss together, to find a common denominator that can bring the 2 of us together, and then we'll tell the elected representatives, this is what we want, because we are the people and we are sick up to here of violence.
I think Sean is getting very near the nub of the matter. It's the working class people coming together. There's no problem, or no great problem, in the middle class areas, out in the suburbs where I live. Jew and Catholic and Protestant and atheist, we've always lived together in greatest friendship and harmony.
That's because you have everything.
Oh yes, I know there are economic reasons and all that sort of thing. All I'm saying is that we do it. The real problem is in the other areas, bad housing, no work, all this sort of thing. And a little sad to hear 2 or 3 of you talking about war weariness. Of course there's war weariness, we're all fed to the teeth. But there's no answer in that. Just grinding to a halt because we're so fed up with it doesn't solve anything. The only solution is reconciliation. And reconciliation can only come with justice.
Now, this gentleman here is talking about middle-class areas. Now, those people, in my opinion, in the middle-class type of area are divorced, really, what do you say, are divorced, really, from the real violence.
Yeah, and I think that the upper-class people in Belfast just don't realise that it's going to affect them in the long run.
Well, now, it's not true. I mean, it has hit us. I won't for 1 minute pretend it's hit us anything like the degree that it's hit the Falls and the Shankill. That would be hypocrisy to pretend it had. But don't say that we're completely outside and don't know anything about it.
You know, I'm from a middle-class area, a working-class background, working-class mother and father. And again, I've been directly involved, you know, in the violence. The very first time that it came home to me when I had a friend who had his son assassinated in Ardown, and I accompanied that man down to, you know, the Belfast morgue to see his son, and that boy had 5 bullets in him, in his back, and to see that father, you know, throw his arm around that boy's neck and, you know, cry his heart out was terrible. But little did I realise, that was a bad experience, little did I realise that on the 21st of July, which is now known as Bloody Friday, I lost my own sister at the explosion on the Cave Hill Road. And I know people's fears. I've had threatening phone calls, get out or be burnt out. Perhaps they're cranks, but at the same time, it brings a certain amount of fear, and I would agree. We're not affected to the same extent, but at the same time, we know it's there. But it's in the working class areas, in the ghetto areas, in the troubled areas, where the change is going to have to take place, because these are the people that can either give you peace or give you violence.
Let me put this point to you. The middle class and the upper class are the people who originated this trouble, not the working class.
That's just what I'm
But
saying.
the working class, then they end up at the wrong end of the stick. They're the people who really suffer.
You know, working class people should have taken sort of steps themselves to put forward leaders, which they haven't done. They've always relied on sort of, will you say, middle class leaders, and I would say certainly they have got the wrong end of the stick. They have been misled in days gone by, and I certainly didn't mean that.
Since I have been out in the city on a night out, my social life now is almost nil. If I do get out, it's 1 night a week, and it's to a social club that is 100% Protestant, for the simple reason is I'm too frightened to go anywhere else. And I know this place is 50% safe. That's the only place. It's about 15 minutes from where I live. I go there and I come back in, and that's my social life for the week. I just live for every Saturday night to get out. And if we do happen to go anywhere else, it's about 15 miles from Belfast. And we go there and we sit all night and worry how we're going to get back home. The whole night's taken up.
I believe now we've got to spend this next 4 to 5 months separating the charlatan from the sincere, genuine person.
Yes.
And that we, at the present time, I could speak for people of Ardown on both sides of the political fence, and I can tell you here and now that some of the political leadership that we have been getting prior to '69 has been so crooked that when these politicians die, instead of burying them, they'll screw them into the ground. And this applies very, very much so to the political leadership that our people has been getting.
The Protestants were of the opinion that they had something better than the Catholics, until they opened their eyes and said, I supported this guy over the last whatever number of years. My mother supported him, my father supported him, and here I am living in the same house, 2-bedroom house, and yet there's Catholics getting 3-bedroom houses and 4-bedroom houses, and all the time I was told these people are my enemy. and these people don't support the state, and they don't do this, and they don't do that, and they don't do the other thing. And here I am, who supported that. I did everything that was necessary that the government said I was to do, yet I'm still here, and here's the water running down the walls. Where do I come into this? And this is a point that Sean has made.
Yeah, that's a political wedge coming in.
Yeah, well, this is a point that Sean has made that I see that it's affecting the Protestant people as well. Yeah. They're saying, I'm getting nothing.
100% safe. Is that right? Yes. Well, I have 2 teenage boys. They're in absolutely no organisation in this world. They're in nothing. And my boys were arrested 5 times in 1 week for absolutely nothing. I think the main cause in Catholic areas today is the oppression of the British Army. And until something's done about that, nobody need think that violence will stop.
Sure, it happens on the Protestant side too. Like.
But you've no idea of it. Now,
I've
wait, hold it 1 minute.
Who's a Christian.
Hold it 1 minute, please. It's those kind of things that has to be seen to now, right now. Because if that keeps going on, you can talk about IRA, UDA, whatever you like, any other A's you like to bring into it. But if that oppression still keeps going, the only way them kids are going to get their own back is to join some sort of organisation, whether they have my consent or anybody else's.
The main reason why the troubles are still going is because people won't forget the past.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to have to do before they're... No, that's the only answer. If people forget the past and think of present and the future, then...
I agree with you, though.
I agree with you there.
Because I'm saying the way I see it is that human nature being as it is, people being as they are, people can't forget the past.
Yeah, because they've lost relations.
Some people
want
vengeance. Some people, like some of the members here, who don't feel embittered by what's happened to them personally.
Yeah, but that's
Some
what I'm
people
saying
do.
too. I don't know what way I'd react if any of my relations or any of my family were hurt. Maybe, God knows, I might go out, get a gun as quickly as I could and go down, secretly down on the falls and start shooting anybody and everybody. And it's just a pity that this might happen.
Well, this is a present situation.
At the
You
minute.
see, that's the point about it all now. If there's something not done now, right now, you take the children at 10 years old now. This happened, say, 4 years ago. They were only 6. They don't know what law and order is. They never heard of it. They won't be accountable to just anybody at all. They think they can go out, just do what they like, when they like.
Yeah.
Well, if there's something not going to be done right now, what future is for these kids coming up?
Well, can I say something here?
It's almost a note of despair on your part, isn't it?
Yeah, a despair because I'm a mother of teenage children.
Well,
I really feel hopeless. I feel that I can't do anything for them. I feel that if something's not done, the bitterness is going to just keep ebbing away at them kids. And eventually they could become IRA men. I don't know. But it could happen. And that's what I don't want things to happen, and I want something done, and done right now.
Now, this is the way I look at the problem. As a father, I have 4 kids. These 4 kids are going to come up. I know already, my boy's 8, the UDA. I've already seen them at it. When they have a game, they play games that are violent games. My young lad doesn't want to know any other toys except guns or knives or bombs or whatever it is. Now, they think it's a done thing. They think that this is a done thing. You're not in unless you're like this. You're not acceptable inside the community unless you're doing this type of thing. And what we want to try and do, before we talk about anything new, is to try and get the kids educated, to tell them that this is not the solution to the problem.
Right.
What you must do is you must go and talk to the people. Now, for example, my young lad there said to me recently, the only good thing he could say about the Catholics, like, I'm being plain and straight, the only good thing he could say about the Catholics was they're good fighters. You know? Well, I don't want him saying that. What I want him to say is that they're good people. I work along with them. We are working to create a new society. I don't want them saying they're good fighters. That's no longer acceptable. You see, that's the violent way out of the thing. But you can't blame a lot of people for adopting a fixed attitude, because you see, despair creeps in. Despair starts creeping in as the troubles go on, and as more people get shot and more people get killed by bombs. Despair creeps in, and once you've got despair creeping in, you're really at a low ebb. And what I said earlier when we first started, that you can only get so violent. It's like pornography. You can only go so low, and then you start coming back up again. Yeah. And this is what I personally feel is happening in Northern Ireland today. Well, people have gone right down to the depths, and they've said to themselves, this is low enough. You can't go any lower than this. I mean, you can't go any lower than killing women and kids and shooting boys in the head and tying their hands behind their back. You can't go any lower than that.
Only for the troubles. But see, there's really one thing I hate, and that's people from Malone Road and anywhere like that, because they're sitting so smug, watching all the troubles, and they're not involved in it at all. And that annoys me, and that's why I don't like upper class. And I'm working class, and I eventually hope to lift myself out of it, because I'm getting married in April. And I'm immigrating to Canada in September. That's 9 months away, 10 months away. I'll be out of Ireland altogether. And the only worry I'll have about Ireland then is my relations still in it.
It's terrible sad that the community in Northern Ireland should be losing a fella of the calibre of George, because these are the type of people that we are going to have to build our integrated communities around, because the future of Northern Ireland lies in the hands of our young people.
I would like to see this trouble all over myself, because I have one boy. I have a family, but I have one boy that my heart's set on. And he's a good trade to his hands, and I imagine if this trouble was all over, I would see my son back here in his own country and earning a living, because he's 12,000 miles away, and he could write and tell me he's working, maybe he's not working.
Yes.
And I don't sleep at night either. I just sit and think all of these things, and I hear these bombs and blasts and what have you going on. I say to myself, I'm glad he's out of the country, but at the same time, I would like to see him back in his own country, earning his living here, instead of having to go to another country for to do it.
Yeah, imagine what he's feeling away in another country.
Well, he's away and I might laugh and joke. I do a lot of laughing and joking myself. I just can't help my nature. But as I say, I don't sleep all that much. I can sit there and have my cry at night. I miss my husband out of my home. I miss my son away. And if I hadn't the two girls I had, I don't need to be shot. I would just lie down and die. And that's just how it is.
It's what's happening to people in Belfast now.
The woman was dead, shot dead.
That's right. I lost count at 1,500 rounds of ammunition being used by both sides on the army.
He counted 36 bullet holes in our wall.
She was caught in crossfire and she was shot.
Something blows up, there's a gun battle, a soldier is shot.
And bang, this other chap gets it.
That goes on a vicious circle, tit for tat, tit for tat.
It goes up and up and up and up and up.
The only way we're going to succeed in isolating these gunmen is to give the political wings of these terrorist organisations a political voice, and that if the people themselves, when they see their policies and their programme, are not satisfied, they're beat.
But when are they going to start doing this? When are they going to stop shooting and start talking?
Both wings of the Republican Army at the present time are being denied in law the right to have a political voice.
Everybody is talking to the wrong people.
That's it.
You must remember, they are at war.
They're at war with the IRA. The IRA, they're at war with the British Army. And the British Army, they're at war with everybody.
The British Army aren't going out and leaving bombs down and blowing up innocent people. The IRA are. And
if the Irish Republican Army's at war, the majority of Catholic people didn't declare war.
What's happening is people's getting killed and getting killed and getting killed.
When I'm scared of getting killed.
Fear.
Fearful.
Frightened.
Blind terror.
So full of hatred.
Vengeance.
Assassination.
People dying.
A funeral.
Shot dead.
Assassination.
Hopeless.
Tragedy and the violence.
Where are we? What are we?
Despair is a terrible thing. Now, I think the incident that made me despair most in the whole troubles was, no doubts about it, the incident that I saw close up one night up in the area where I live. Now, it really made me despair. The police officers came along to this particular incident, completely unarmed. And they were shot down by somebody with a machine gun. And these policemen were lying on the ground, and I was standing beside them, and I had my hands in my pockets, and I was completely despairing. I said, this is shocking. This is terrible. No incident has ever affected me so much as this particular incident. I walked up the street and I put my hands in my pockets and I said, what level have we dropped to here? You know, here was a fella lying on the ground with the blood flying out of him, dying, and I could do nothing about it.
And he hadn't gone to protect himself?
He had nothing to protect himself. So invariably now, when the police come into the area that I'm in, they're carrying submachine guns. Then the other fellas say, hey, they're coming armed to the teeth to get you.
Yep.
And we're the only people who can protect you. And it's just one vicious circle. But at the end of the day, the two policemen are in the hole in the ground. I was very sorry. I really was despairing that night. I really felt very bad about the whole incident.
The saddest thing I saw...
First, let me get clear on this, because the element of that despair was that here were people being rather legitimately arrested, in your estimation, I gather, and the police came in unarmed to try to help the situation, and yet were shot down unarmed.
Yes.
The tragedy was terrible.
But I said, where do we go from here?
Well, I felt rather the same.
It's the end of the line, like we've had it.
I want to go back to Bloody Friday. Now, that actually started at our place here on the Albert Bridge there. The first bomb was placed under the arch adjoining our building. It was a very big one. Luckily, it didn't go off. They defused it. We completely evacuated on the Lagan Bank. And as we stood there with that, 200 or 300 girls, all sorts, half Catholics, half complete mix. Girls were beginning to get a bit jittery. The bombs began to go off. You remember what it was like? There must have been, the 12 or 15 bombs all around us. It was pandemonium. The girls were fainting, screaming. And when the first bomb went off, there was a great cheer. The whole of the other side of the river was lined by the whole of the short strand. They were just packed the other side of the river. And when the first bomb went off, a cheer went up, you could hear over the whole town. And that's the saddest thing. You know, the whole impact of it hit me afterwards when I realised so many people I knew had been killed, how much carnage there was. And all I can think of is that great crowd of people lining the other side of the river and cheering.
The despairing element was that some part of your own country's population was really cheering death and destruction.
And I mean, obviously knew it was coming off. They're waiting for it, obviously waiting, just lined up. And when the first bomb went up went the cheers.
We've talked about, the violence and the brutality and the dehumanization kind of that's gone on. And I was really touched and moved, and I'm sort of angry at myself that I didn't respond that way and let you know that. Like nobody could respond to Brian, just to let you know that we heard what you said, the thought of you standing with your two hands in your pockets and the sense of despair and a dead policeman there. Whether it's Catholic, Protestant, or whatever, it's a tragic situation. But we can sit next to one another and not even be persons with one another.
Yeah, but when Brian was talking, you see, because of my personal experience, if I think about it too deeply, tears roll down my cheeks. And
that's not a crime.
I know that. But obviously that's why sometimes I have to beat it back, and perhaps, I know the reason that, I didn't follow up because it triggered me off, and I just went back to that my own personal experience, which is very, very hard to explain, but that's how I feel it. I mean, every time there's somebody killed, it's not the person that's killed that really, they're gone, they're gone. It's the people that are left, and it's the people that have got to be faced, the people that have got to be told the news. And
you feel that you can't really let go of the grief that you feel.
Well, it's happened a few times. It's happened in bed. This is the only time when you get a chance to really think. I have to at night in bed I'd be lying thinking, you know, I'm not saying I do it all the time, but, you know, I'd say a prayer, you know, and I'd think, and you know, you really have to get up. You know, I have to get up on my elbow. I got to get up on my elbow and concentrate, actually concentrate to realise that that has happened, that I'm not going to see Margaret anymore. And for instance, when I was out in the car the other day with my young son of 4.5, he said to me, you never take me over to Aunt Margaret's anymore. He kept complaining about this, and I was thinking, you see, I said to him, you like your Aunt Margaret? And he said, oh, I like to get a ride in that bicycle. This was a bicycle that some for kiddies had, you see. But again, that triggered me off a bit, you know, it made me think. And it's very, very hard to put it out of your mind. And even, you know, the other night, sitting talking with my mother and father about it, you know, and they took it very well. My father took it very well the day that I told him. My mother, of course, broke her heart, you know. But we're talking about it, and, you know, he just did what I was doing today, and as I told you, he just didn't talk much, you know. He just gazed into the fire and, you know, just with a faraway look in his eyes, you know. And my sister was a very, very lively person, and the way that he explained, she was probably the favourite in the whole family, the family of 8. And nobody really, you know, nobody was jealous or denied her that position. And he explained, you know, the way he explained it was this here. He said that, you know, when she came into a room, it was like somebody turning on the light, you know, and that was how he saw her. And to think of that light, you know, to think that light was snuffed out, and that he wasn't going to see her again, and so I feel sometimes that the loss to my parents was probably worse than it was to me, because after all, I was married and, you know, had a wife and children, and the loss, I mean, and then again the loss to her husband and her children, and the eldest one was 11, and I thought, you know, the oldest ones would remember it the longest. Because, you know, that day it happened and they were in my house, they kept saying to me, the oldest one kept saying to me, Uncle Tom, you know, is my mum dead? Is my mum dead? And I said, no, she's not dead. She's been injured a little bit, and they've taken her to the hospital. And quite honestly, I didn't know what to tell her, you know. I just didn't know what to tell her, because the father was away, he was in business, and I thought, well, you know, I better leave this. And, you know, that whole day, I had 2 things to do. First of all, I got in touch with his firm, and they said, look, we'll contact them. So for the rest of that day, I had to keep sort of, you know, bluffing. I had to say, all right, now your mother's now in the hospital, and they're going to have a look at her, and they won't give us any news until 5:30. This is, say, 3:30. Won't give me any news until 5:30. And they said she was injured a bit. But the kids were happy. The kids were happy with that, you know. They were happy, except for the youngest one, and to this day we don't really know, you see, because when he came back from the shop, remember he was in the shop when I came down around them, he grabbed his mother's handbag and said, you know, who's going to go for the shopping? Who's going to get the shopping? So I think that he saw his mother lying on the pavement. I'm sure of it to this day, you see, that, but besides then trying to put them off, I had to take a trip out to my mother's as well, and my sister had just left my mother's to come and visit me. And to walk in there and say, you know, I've got, you know, Dad, I've got bad news for you, you know, and, you know, my mother and father are looking at me and saying, you know, well, you know, what is it? Is it Rosemary? I said, no, Mum, it's not Rosemary, it's Margaret, you know, and them saying, well, what is it, you know? And I said, you know, it's pretty bad, it's very bad. And then I said, you know, she's dead. She's been killed with an explosion. Of course, my mother broke down. My father was fantastic. He was a real tower of strength, you know, really terrific, so he was, you know. Actually, I had to bring a priest with me, and even when I was bringing the priest was saying to me, you know, what am I going to say? I said, look, Father, don't you say anything. I'll talk. I said, but I just want you there for some comfort. And he did comfort my mother, and my father and I went out to the garage, and there
Brings it all back.
You best not talk about it, Brent.
well, we both broke down, you know.
Yeah, but see, Tucker, when you go into these things, I've found my own personal experience, you have to push your emotions away. You have to push them in the background, because if you dwell on them too long, you'll crack up completely. A lot of people have cracked up, and it does no good, you know.
I guess you're speaking for yourself on that you feel if you dwell on it, you'll crack up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see, you have a steel shutter that comes down in your mind to try and... You have this steel shutter that comes down inside your head, and I feel that this steel shutter, the real person's the other side of it, and you're this side of it, and you delve into a particular problem so far that, things start happening that, that normally wouldn't be happening.
I'm sure that's true. I guess I feel that here is a place where the person behind that steel shutter, I can well understand why you would have to pull that down.
Oh, yes.
But here is a place where the person behind that shutter could be.
This barrier must come down, because you'd all go mad if it didn't. You'd all end up in.
I mean, there's nobody here couldn't relate to 50 cases at least, if you could. But you just couldn't put your mind back to that to think of them. You just can't.
You say this other person on the other side of this barrier, this other part of you which you close off. Sometimes I find that a dangerous person, because it's full of emotion, irrationality, and if you let that loose, sometimes when I hear cases like that from some of the friends I know who were injured or killed, if I dwell on it too much, I feel like doing something violent.
So in your case, the Iron Curtain keeps you from violence.
Yes.
This not quite your real self that you're living.
I'm aware of that other self, and I know it's necessary for my makeup, that I do have emotions sometimes. But it's trying to achieve a balance by not losing your whole human compassion at all,
I would like to be a friend to the you that is behind the Iron Curtain. I really would. I wish I could get to know that person, because it seems to me he's probably a pretty choice person. I just want to say that and drop it.
Yeah, I know myself. I'm quite aware of this other thing. And it scares me to know that it is there, because it is violent, emotional, and easy expression. I let myself be.
And would it need a particular incident, say, to set you going there? For instance, if you thought it was something that was against you're opposed to your way of thinking, or something that happened that you thought was unjust.
Injustice, generally speaking, if it was a provisional doing some nasty foul deed that involved people of my own area, my own family or friends, I would feel I want some retribution, some violent way of getting back at them. Or if it was the British Army or anybody at all, and I dwelt on this and let it take over my rational thinking, I know I wouldn't be responsible for myself, point blank, simple as that. And I see people like myself who let the steel shutter get them so emotional, come up and let the floodgates flow, get so emotional, so full of feeling, and it's genuine feeling. Sometimes I see it as animalistic, because it's human too, because it's part of their makeup. It is human. It's even compassion can do it, ordinary human compassion. Blind it and twist it in a certain way, It seems strange to say that this has made me more tolerant, I think it has, I can understand more people and their varying different reactions. But it takes me to see the whole thing in a wider context, remove myself, so that the steel shutter does help.
If anything happened to any of my family or my boyfriend, I would just go crazy until I get somewhere for revenge.
You don't know till you get there.
Oh,
Many
yes,
times
I
I
do
said
know.
that to
This
myself.
is something I can't understand about a human being. You know, this is my own feelings as a human being. There's no point in saying one thing and thinking another. You know, I'm saying how I feel, and when I see people saying, no, I don't feel better about this, or oh, it's one of those things, and oh, God's willing this. To me, this is rubbish.
I've met people like you, and I've felt the same way as you myself over this past 3 or 4 years. And they've had the same reaction. Some have done what you've just said. They have been hurt, or their people have been hurt, and they have won out, as you said you would do, for vengeance. Others have completely changed their mind. They didn't know till they got there.
Sitting here listening to you, Linda, I don't think you would be capable of holding revenge or wanting to quit. Honestly, I don't.
I would
Do that. I'm not going to ask you for a date after that.
Peggy, you've been sitting there and your eyes look so deep tonight. I don't know. Your eyes do look deep, and I don't want to, if you have nothing you want to say, all right, but I would like to just give you the opportunity to speak if you want to.
Well, really what I was thinking, I was half listening and half not listening. But I was thinking of back home, where everybody's nerves is so frayed. It's so easy to sit here and talk. I mean, if I was at home in my house now, I couldn't be sitting here contented. If my child was out the door, my temperature would be 103, waiting on one of them coming in again. If they went out 100 times a night, I die a little every time they go out that door. So I'm just not in a mood for sitting discussing things that should happen, but that are not happening.
Because even here you live with some of the terror that you feel back there.
More of the terror?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just remembering what it's like when I'm in Belfast. I don't sit any night. I couldn't sit down and relax, watch a TV show, go outside the door. I couldn't do that. I don't go out 7 days a week. I sit in. I'm not capable of going out. I just sit and worry and worry and worry. And when the door closes behind John this week, about 12:10 at night, I eventually sigh, one sigh of relief. They're all in. Then the following morning, when they get up, start to go out to work again, the same fears crop up. I eventually start and work myself into panic. Everything that happens. Every time I see the soldiers coming, every time I hear bindnids, every time I hear anything, I wonder, is it my kid that's lying beat up? That's what's in my mind, not what could happen or what we would like to happen, but what is happening. What is happening right now at home. And Catholic districts are desperate places to live.
Yeah, this is the point I was going to make.
appreciate
just
you
before that.
sharing that. I really do. I feel a very deep response to you. I hope you do feel that. And
I think like
You see,
everybody feels.
do you know
Everybody
what I
feels
would
what
like
you feel.
to try
about
and
what Peggy's
explain?
thinking.
But the people here don't understand what it's like.
no, I'm sure that's true.
You have a Negro community. You have a white community. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Well, imagine for 1 minute, even for 1 second, the Negro community completely lighted up, all the streets lighted up, and life going on as usual, just for the odd bomb, the blast, or the sound of gunfire in the distance. You imagine you sitting in a particular district looking over at what looks like a fairyland. But the gunfire you're going to hear isn't in the distance, it's in your street.
Right here.
That, I just couldn't put it through to you just what it's like being a Catholic in a Catholic community with the jackboot of the British Army, morning, noon and night. You don't know when your door's going to get bashed in. You don't know when your son's going to get beat up. You don't know when they're going to be arrested. All this light talk doesn't mean anything to me. It's what's happening to people in Belfast now, right now, and what that's going to do to the Catholic kids that's coming up now, especially the teenage ones, the ones that's too young yet to do anything about it, but that I know in my heart they won't forget, and they'll eventually want to do something about it. There is a terrible difference made.
I have the same feelings too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have, and I appreciate that.
I can follow Peggy's point of view very closely because I'm away from home a lot in my job, and we live in this type of area too. Now, I have come home in the morning, and my wife is like Peggy. She doesn't get out anywhere, and she has 4 kids in the house. And when you're locked inside the 4 walls, it's all right for me, okay, so there's dangers and all involved and what have you, everybody's in danger somehow or other. But when I get home, she has mattresses against the window and the kids on the floor, and this is day in, day out, the trouble, the shooting, to become second nature to the kids. Now my kids know exactly what to do. I haven't told them. I haven't said a thing to them. If people start shooting, to take a particular action. But my kids have got so inbred into the thing that they take that action themselves.
Can I take that point up?
They lie down behind the wall and they know to stay there until the shooting stops. My other fella, he zigzags up the street like John Wayne and in through the front door. Recently there I opened the door and I heard a noise at the door and opened the door and he was rapping it with his head to get in. I know, I can appreciate our point of view. When you're under pressure continually, 24 hours a day, you either break down, you leave, or you get totally into despair and say that, you know, you just can't take it. And I think my wife is something similar to Peggy, no doubt
Well,
about it.
I'm the same as Peggy in this
Sean
respect
said,
here.
Sean said he wanted to say something.
Yeah. I heard you, Peggy, about the children. I have experience with the children in these areas. You know, I taught in one of the biggest secondary schools on the Falls Road. Some of those children over this past few years, I know them personally, coming from the same district as them, and what they've put up with, and how they've reacted. It's unbelievable, you know. Some of them have joined illegal organisations. Some of them have got killed. And I see it in their work every day. You ask them to do an English essay. The sights of Belfast are a typical day in the life of a young boy. I use this word again, it's polluted with violence. You get nothing but Saracens, guns, bullets, gunfights, people dying. And sometimes I've found it very difficult not to sort of feel compassion for these children, not to identify with them, because some of the experiences I've felt myself, you know. And I see in the whole spectrum of their work, from the brightest boy to the dullest boy, the different ways it can affect different people, you know.
I pity all young people now the same as myself, because we're not coming up with no shoes on. We're coming up with the troubles up in there. But I think that I feel really strong about, I just don't know what way to say it. I think you've made a mess of our world. And I think, like, I'm not saying that my generation is going to make it any better. They might make a worse mess of it. But I'm just talking about, I'd have preferred coming up without shoes in my feet.
Yeah.
And just growing up with all the experiences that most old people have had through the depressions and things like that, without coming up mentally stressed.
George, I can still see light at the end of the tunnel.
That's right.
Because, George, like, I know it's a terrible thing for a Catholic man to say this. If I thought there wasn't light at the end of that tunnel, honest to God of Almighty, I think half times I would do my wife and kids and myself in. But there's light there, George. We must never lose hope. I've lost hope. But
I'm
George,
just looking for. I just want my light to be. I want my light to be
George,
nearer to me than what you.
You're up and out of Northern Ireland society.
Yeah. No, you can't go away and leave the place barren. I mean, we can't all go to the moon just because the Earth's not a nice place.
I want to live in Belfast. I think all the people in it, Protestants, Catholics, makings of a great society. Even at the minute, it's really terrific or horrific place.
This is it. Maybe it's just that I don't want to wait for it.
This
I want it now. This is something that I have. I'm born this way.
Yeah.
I can't wait for anything. I have to have it.
The society we're living in over there at the minute is in a state of flux, change. It had to come. I'm glad to be a part of it. That may sound strange. I think it's momentous moments, great times, horrible times, but out of it all I think good's going to come.
Yeah.
I mightn't see it. I might get killed in it. In fact, the point I was going to emphasise was I accepted very soon after 1969 that possibly I could get killed in a process.
I could get killed too. I accept the fact that I get killed, but I could get killed just as easy in Canada. So I'm not up and out for that reason.
Yeah.
I'm just up and out for the fact that I want a better life for any children that I might bring in, if I can't bring any in this world. I want a better life for them.
I don't think so. I don't know if you can have a better life anywhere, except, it's all relative.
Well, without
different
trouble,
places.
if I can't have a better life.
How do you know a civil war won't start in Canada?
Well, I'd like to hear.
I
just want to ask Linda about this question.
Not right.
I really can't say much in this because I'm really mixed up about this. There's some days that I really think I'm going to stick this out and be like everybody else and do what I can and try and make it a better place to live in. And then as the bombings go on and the shootings go on, I think, why the hell should I stay here? I'm going to go out and have a better life somewhere else. Because this past few years, I just haven't had any teenage life at all, and I'm just getting that sick of it now. And some days I just don't want to know. And then there again, the other day, I feel that bit more hopeful and I think, yes, I will stay and make a go of it.
That's true.
With his wife suddenly hospitalized, Carl Rogers regretfully leaves the group. He asks Audrey McGaw, an experienced group facilitator, to take his place.
About this yesterday on. I'm glad you see that it is a vicious circle, Linda, because the army create a lot of violence themselves.
But if I hadn't anything to hide, I wouldn't mind the army coming into my house. I wouldn't come out and leave a bin and everything else.
Some of them don't have anything to hide, some of them do.
Why does it come out? Why does the army housewife come out on the street?
Some of them are afraid of some of the things we've been talking about, that the army will come in and take their men away and beat up children.
Whenever they,
but I don't think the army just take everybody away.
When the British Army shot,
it happens in a few cases. But I mean, not all the time. It's the same thing. Every time there's a gun battle, the army go in to search. The women come out on the streets. The next thing is starts throwing stones. Then the gunmen move in. The army go back out again. They still haven't completed their search, so the army go back in and do the same thing. The women come back out instead of letting the army carry out their search. And if they don't find anything, well then the Catholic have a good point there. The army probably won't ever come in and look again.
But this,
if they don't keep bothering and shooting at the army, and if they don't come and do
this would be
right.
lovely. This would be really lovely if they could do that.
You said they don't do it where you live. Just a wee minute, John, in case I forget. The UDA is born. It's going step for step with the provisional IRA. Everything the provisional started to do, the UDA is doing now.
Yeah.
Step for step.
Do you think that people should sit back
no,
and let the IRA blow us all up? Do you think this?
The way I see it is, I think it's a pity that it's happening. I'll tell you why.
It is.
Because they're going step for step. Everything the provisional's done, they're doing.
It's like retaliation.
Now, eventually, the tables will turn. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I wouldn't like to see my worst enemy coming through with the Catholic population are coming through now.
And I can
when
see it
those
happening in your
tables
community,
were...
Linda.
This still doesn't answer my question.
It does
about why
answer
the
your
women
question.
keep coming on the
Linda,
street. I
can
can't
I
see.
say something?
When it happens to you, you'll know.
Try to answer.
Oh, I don't think I would go out if the army
Sean.
came into
I
this
don't
my
go out. I
house.
never was out.
What about all the women that do go out? If they sat back in their house and just let the army
Just
come
let
in
them
and
shoot
search,
all round the
they're
place.
not going to come in and shoot all around
Oh,
the place
no.
and
Linda,
nobody's shooting
Linda.
at them now.
Oh, no.
Linda,
That's
you
really...
haven't, Linda, you haven't
I'm
experienced it.
telling you, Linda, you're living in a dream
Linda,
world.
you haven't experienced it.
Would you answer me this here? You say it hasn't been done. Time and time again, the British Army, between the hours of 4 to 6, has come in repeatedly 7 days a week. Maybe a lull. They come back another 7 days. They've had repeated search after search after search of our doing. You know all, they've got the cold. They got the cold. But there was a stream of row after row of houses wrecked. Those houses were made insecure even against burglary. Those houses were left by the army bomb people who were supposed to come in within 24 hours and repair them. Left them like that for 3 months. You ask me why the people of Ardoyne come out to rattle bins. I'll tell you why.
Who's doing all this shit?
Just a wee minute now, George. I getting sort of fed up listening to this business. I'll tell you why we're out. What we saw on the 9th of August to the 20th of August, we will never forget. When men was pulled from their beds, weren't even given time to dress, were beaten down the stairs with battens of bamboo cane, were taken outside and harassed, beat stupid and nearly kicked to death in Saracen tanks by our so-called protectors.
Well, Sean, don't be shouting at me. I didn't do it.
I'm only telling you.
Yeah.
I'm only telling you. And you ask us after a colonel in the British Army gives an interview to the Sunday Express and tells the people of Ardoyne, give up your gunmen or you'll never sleep a night in your bed. This man was classing the entire Ardoyne community of 12,000 people. You give us your gunmen or you'll never sleep a night in our bed. We have been taking constant harassment in Ardoyne since 1969, and I stand now before God and His Holy Mother and I tell you that we will not give up our gunmen. And the reason why we'll not give up our gunmen because we're victims of tragedies in Ardoyne which would make Dhaka, Vietnam and all look like a kindergarten.
Well, this is the whole
But Sean, can't you see, you'll just have to feed the British Army
Just
like
let me
that.
finish.
An army isn't going to pull out.
Just let me finish.
Wait, that's questionable.
Just let me finish. And the other point is this here. We have lost absolute, complete confidence in both the RUC and the British Army as protectors of our people. And as long as the harassment stays on, as long as this new policy of the British Army's harassment of Catholic communities keep on, they're having a snowball's chance in hell of us giving up our gunmen.
You're saying protecting your people.
Also, Peggy has also brought in the point,
That's why I was
George.
going to want to answer your
Peggy,
question, Sean. You're saying you're actually standing up and defending a nation's army and saying we're not going to give up our gunmen
This is something I want to
unless you stop harassment. Well, then that British Army are just going to say the exact same to you. We're not going to stop harassing these people until you give us them gunmen.
What's far more sinister,
He won't stop hitting
I
you
agree
until I
with
give him a
Tom.
drink of water.
I don't think you're quite right. Certainly, you'll never beat the British Army, but the public opinion may beat them, and they may be pulled out. And then, God help you, what we've seen now will be a Sunday school picnic to what'll happen then.
God help
If you
everybody.
keep your guns, how can you get the guns off the UDA? And you stand up there publicly, Sean, and say, we will never give up our guns.
You see,
and yet you're...
God help everybody if the
here we're
British
trying
Army
to
are
get
pulled
rid of
out.
it.
Take that out of its context. I said until, and go back to what I said yesterday, Barney. Until this harassment stops, until the gunman, if it is made come out into the political field, until... now,
Yes,
Barney,
I accept this, Sean.
Yeah.
Now, are you saying that if we can get rid of a harassment, that your side, are prepared to talk, to cooperate, and under those circumstances you will get rid of the gun? Not put them under the bed, put them away, but get rid of them.
Yeah. If
Are you
their
prepared
policy...
to, given a
political
just
wing-
and fair policy?
I think that is the way.
Well, if that is true, can you not get that message out loud and long? Because the only message we get is we will not give up our guns.
You see,
Barney,
could I interject
you forget
here?
the point about
Could I
that
interject a wee bit there?
the political wing of the Republican armies, that it be official or provisional, they haven't got it. It's not law. It's not legal. Until that, this is one of the major moves that Mr. Whitelaw must make, is to give them that political voice in order to give people like me the opportunity to see what sort of a social, economic and industrial development programme have these people got? If it's not on, they've isolated and beat themselves.
My wife has a tendency to say, you know, when there's a lot of shooting, a lot of soldiers, as you know, and a lot of people has been killed around that section. My wife has a tendency one day to say, that's good, they're going in to see where the guns are, and the next day she said, I wouldn't fancy living over there, you know, it must be wild. When they're getting woken up in the middle of the night and all, and the kids and all, and you can hear that we're pretty close into this. This is why I am very sorry to see the day that when we turn into the same position, I really think that this could possibly come about. You know, where for expediency's sake or from whatever else, whatever other reason, that I end up in the same position. I wouldn't like to end up in the same position because I would be the same as you. I would be unable to give up these people because they are the only persons that I can turn to for protection and for support. Now, some of the deeds that they might do might completely appall me, personally, as an individual, and say, look, these fellas shouldn't be doing this thing, like, they're not right. But then you have the other side of the coin, that they're necessary evil, you know, and I think that I could see the Protestants coming to this, the Protestant communities coming into the same situation. And I can honestly see my wife out with a dustbin. There's no good saying I can't, because I can't.
Linda, I want to come to you and to express how you feel about things.
Well, I would be able to see from Peggy and Tom and Sean all the different aspects of it, and I'm able to understand things more fully, and I can feel for them the way I could never have felt before.
Yeah.
I don't want you to change your mind completely because there's some people who aren't doing anything about it, you know. And I agree with you there on that aspect, but I'm glad you changed a wee bit anyway, you know, and see that everybody isn't just an evil sort of gunman terrorist, you know, and that some of the gunmen aren't even evil, you know, just misguided maybe.
I would love that Linda would accept my invitation now to come and meet my son and daughter and my wife.
Ask her?
I have already asked her.
You were looking down at the floor at me.
She's so pretty, you know. Oh, no, that's true.
You and Peggy got very close together there now, you know. To my mind, you know, you certainly did, there was a good bond there. I thought, you know.
No, we have a lot in common, mate.
There was a very good bond there, you know.
We have a lot in common.
Yeah. Words couldn't describe what I feel toward Brian. I think he fully understands me as a person.
Oh, I do, there's no question about that. And I'm sorry for the condition. I wouldn't like to be in it myself. And I know my wife wouldn't like to be in it. You know, I definitely do know that.
And for that reason, I'm very grateful, and I think I've found a friend.
Yeah, I want to put across to Peggy that there's a vast majority of Protestants, a vast field of Protestants, who would like to assist her.
Oh, surely.
But can't find a way to do it.
I firmly believe that too.
You know what I mean? They would like to do it and not to cause any animosity to anybody, not to cause any hurt to themselves or their families. I think there's a lot of people on the Protestant side who would be only too quite willing to help Peggy put her...
I think you could speak there too for
and the
Roman Catholics. Yes,
on the Catholic side, well, I already know that. You know, Georgie, I
you can speak
already
there
know
too
that.
for both sides as regards that. The one wants to help
Support
the
for
other.
this presentation has come from charitable foundations, Protestant and Roman Catholic church groups, and concerned individuals.
Who took some of my furniture in, and who actually was threatened herself for associating with me, and who still,